Well, welcome back, or welcome if this is your first time to the Better Not Perfect podcast, season 2. I'm your host, Dr. Shai Butler, author of Better Not Perfect: From Hot Mess to Life Success, a woman's guide to learning, loving, and being herself unapologetically. If you spent some time with me in season 1, then you know that we've taken some time to just talk about pieces of the book, talk about aspects of my life that I've really opened up in a very transparent way to you. We've talked through some issues, and now we're back for season 2. And in season 2, I am bringing dynamic women to you who have been a part of my better journey, and who have really spoken into my life and just shared themselves with me, and who I've learned from, and who I'm bringing to you because I really believe that you will also gain some insights from today's conversation. So today, I'd like to welcome into the studio Irene Morrison. And Irene is a specialist in the safety industry. She's also a wife and a mom and a grandmom of 2. And I've known Irene for quite a number of years, and she's just been just a joy, and just someone I'm really grateful to has taken the time to be with us today. So hello, Irene.
Hi, sis. Dr. Butler. Um, I'm new at this, so please guide me.
Yeah. Well, good, because that's what this audience is all about, how we do things better, but not perfect. So any imperfection that we can show gives us street credit with the audience, okay? So have no fear or worries. I'll walk you through. I was new at this, and I'm still new at this. So I'm going to begin asking you a question that I've asked other guests. So when you hear better, not perfect, what does that mean to you in a very real and personal way?
For me, better not perfect is something that I say often. For me, that means I'm not where I want to be, but I'm not where I used to be.
Hmm.
And that means that I'm progressing on the healthier side of things.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what it's all about. How can we show up healthier? How can we show up um, more authentically than we have in the past, and really just sort of get on this journey and begin to just love it. Eventually just until we can love this life journey, as we evolve, right? So, we didn't start off realizing that we needed to be better. We started off life as young people. I always say to audiences, when I was a child, I was poor and didn't know it. you know I had a good life. I had fun. I had a carefree childhood. I was surrounded, in a house full. My grandmother was a foster mom, so there were a lot of kids around. There was a lot of joy. And my mom worked a lot, but I loved my mom, but my grandma was it. She was my it girl for a long time. She was my buddy. She would be the one that would throw her body in between me and my mother to prevent that spanking that I so richly deserved. And but I talk in the book about how my life changed when I lost my grandmother, and how at the age of 12, I was young, and I knew something was wrong. I knew something wasn't quite right with her health, but I was a child. I really didn't know the significance of it. And then the day that the paramedics showed up at the house and escorted Gran out for that last time, whew, Even talking about it now takes me back to that time. And that's when things shifted for me. And the grief sort of came in. And I know you and I have talked before about grief and loss and how we can overcome these feelings. So and still just move forward. And I know you've had some losses in your life, share at the level you're comfortable sharing, but how did you make it?
Uh, okay, so I'm realizing that I forgot my tissues.
Mm.
I'll, I'll ask my son to bring them, but um, my dad was a pastor, and for the most part, I've seen him presiding over funerals. I would have to attend funerals, sing at funerals, and it didn't really touch us until I would say when I got in my 30s. And when it did, I would tell you the first death was my brother, and I was in shock. And I started to get what is called anxiety attacks,
Mm.
and I wasn't used to that. Now that I am speaking with you, I, I don't know. I'm, I guess I would describe it as, you know, I felt that I had this safety zone, and whenever your safety place um, seems like it's buckling. And it's funny, sometimes you'll never know what it is that will trigger that. So for me, my brother passed first, and it was hard. I couldn't deal with it. Um, but I continued to work and so on and so forth. And a part of my anxiety was that I didn't feel that I could open up to anyone and tell them that because I was supposed to be strong. At that point, I was married, so I had to be strong for my husband, strong for my children, strong on the job. Um, it was hard to show weakness, and then I had to deal with it myself. So before I expressed it to anyone else, I had to realize what was happening myself and wrap my head around it. And then I started to open up to one of my bosses. Uh,
Wait, Irene,
so
Irene,
speak.
let me ask you something. You said something right there. You said you had to be strong. When sometimes that's learned behavior. Like did you just know that you had to be strong, or did someone role model that you're not supposed to grieve from this place of weakness?
The culture I was raised in, there was at that point in time, when I bring my mind back there wasn't room for weakness. It wasn't really talked about much. The generation that came before us, I would say, my experience was they didn't speak about weaknesses. It took a long time. I'm sorry, Shay.
Oh, girl, please. This is
It took a long time
mm,
for me to even realize my parents weren't doing well
mm, mm,
because they didn't speak.
mm.
It was when I had to start going back and forth to the hospital that I realized how bad things were. Now, when you're the head of a church, although you have to be there for other people, you need people as well. So I think they were taught differently years ago. They were my rocks.
Mm. Yes, I know.
And when I saw my rocks slipping away and all the crazy that we have to deal with in this world, that was very difficult because after a while it dawned on me. with all the back and forth to the hospitals, it's not too long.
Right. Right.
I mean, you could pray and pray and pray, but we're not going to be here forever.
Right.
And I didn't want to lose my rocks.
Right. Right.
They were my rocks in different ways. Mommy, she was dead. He was, just the rock. He was the man's man. He was as I said, he was a pastor. He was a superintendent over other churches. So people came to him, so I lived with other people's rock. Um, and with her, she was just, and she had to be the woman's woman. So there was I didn't see weakness in them until I started to realize, when they started to break down, and with the breakdowns of health, sometimes there's also the breakdown of their mental capacities.
Right.
And that was just difficult. So you had to be strong because although I am the seventh out of nine children, a lot of them moved away by that time. So I had to come to the hospital. I had to do what I needed to do as a daughter.
Right.
And they call that the sandwiched generation. So I was trying to be there for my husband. I was trying to be there for my children. And my children kept saying, "Why are you at the hospital?" And I would say things like, "Well, I only get one mother. I have to be there for my mother." And then I would have to, even I had my church duties. And um, so I think even at that point, I might have been the vice. If I remember
Now you want
correctly.
to get me to
If I remember
crying, but don't
right,
do
I
that.
believe so because your mom was the
Mm,
president of the Women's Fellowship
right.
and I was her vice president.
Right. I
So, you
remember.
have to
Mhm.
show up for that. And so where is the room to cry?
Right.
Where is the room to reflect? I remember being so busy when I drove to my job and I went into my office. I couldn't even tell you how I got there. I just remember being in the car and then the office, but the walk, I mean, I was too busy to think. You know what I
Mm.
mean?
Mhm. Mhm.
And then even if you took the time to do that, I might have broken down faster. So there was no time to think. There was only time to act
Right.
and be there for everyone else until the inevitable happened.
Right. And I can so relate to what you're saying. Um the running, running, running. I mean, that is, being there for my mother when she was in hospice. At the same time she was in hospice, I was enrolled in a doctoral program. I was a wife, and I had two small children. And I was trying to just do everything. I was involved in my church, involved in my community. And I was trying to just show up and be everything for everybody. This whole notion of perfection, and look like I was doing it with ease, and that nothing rattled me. I had this appearance of strength, but inside, I was watching my mother slowly, who was my rock, through my years of um, ups and downs and highs and lows in life. She was there that supported me as a teen mom. She was there who, she was just the one who, loved unconditionally. And when you think about the fact that, okay, there's, and I know not everyone has that same relationship with their parents. So whether it's a parent, a grandparent, an aunt, a guardian, someone of significance in your life, that you are watching their journey, as they wind down their lives, there's all of these feelings that you're working hard to not feel. Because you're saying, if I have to
Yes,
stop and
ma'am.
think about it, I might just have a nervous breakdown. I might start
Okay.
crying and no one will be able to pick me
Okay.
up off this floor.
Yes, ma'am.
So so the struggle with that, is that I kept it all in. And I learned from my mother how to keep it all in. I mean, I watched this woman bury her mother, my grandmother, her father, my grandfather, both of her brothers who died in cancer in their 30s. And I watched my mother sit at funerals and just be regal and stoic and just efficient and not shed a tear until she would get home. And then one night I overheard her crying after a funeral service. But so she role modeled for me, or so I thought, how grieving should happen. Elegant, poised, stoic, and efficient, you know. And and I tried to do that and it was killing me. And so I found solace in wrong places. You know, that's when I picked up my addiction had flared again. I talked to my audience about my struggle with alcoholism, and then when mom got sick, the struggle with pain pills. And the one thing I learned about hydrocodone, oxycodone, all the codones, is that there's pills that are designed to stop you from feeling physical pain. And I, started on them because I had a legitimate uh, illness. But I continued on them in a very illegitimate way because I learned that not only did you stop feeling physical pain, but you stopped feeling all pain. Matter of fact, you stopped feeling all emotion. And I needed to get through without emotion, the wrong way to deal with grief and loss. Now, I know that that's not part of your story, but how did you get through?
Well, and I forgot to tell you about our daughter. Also, we had a daughter who died within 3 days, and I was floored.
Mm,
I was devastated.
mm,
I'm sorry.
You go ahead, don't apologize.
And even today, I think about her. She was such a, and the thing about it was she looked just like my mom.
Mm,
So I thought, I get to raise somebody who looks like my mom. And I saw her going down the aisle and so on and so forth. And when she passed away in my arms, when the doctor said that it looks like she wasn't going to stay, and they put her in my arms and she started to leave, Shay,
mm,
I no words.
no.
So part of it, I would say, is community. I had to admit it to myself. I wasn't taught to. I wasn't taught to hurt. I know that sounds funny, but coming up in a church community, you're taught strength, um, and especially if you are part of the pastor's family,
Mm,
if you will,
mhm,
because you have to be there for everyone else.
right.
So you're not necessarily taught to be there other than yourself. You're not taught to be there for yourself other than, get your good education, make sure you find a good job, stay strong. Even my dad would say things like when I would come to him, I would tell him, well, Dad, I'm going through something and I'm hurting over it. He, when I think back on it, I think maybe he didn't want to see us hurting, but he would say things like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and da, 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 and you can't stay there and come on and I remember thinking, well, now I feel worse, because I feel bad that I'm hurting, but it's a
Yeah.
genuine hurt. And
Mhm.
my mom, she would address it. I'm going to get back to. I'm sorry, I'm just
No,
going the other way
no,
a little
stay
bit.
right there.
And
You're
she
right
would
where you
say,
should be.
yeah, she would say, well, how did you feel about that? And then you'd think, oh wow, somebody cares about how I feel. I always have to care about what everybody else feels. Uh, you mean I get to be on the other side of that? because that's what you're taught. Uh, it's to the point that it's difficult to even come and say, "Hey, I'm hurting."
Mm,
I'm not supposed to be. One of my sisters even told me, she said, "Irene, even when it came to us not feeling well or being sick, we would still go to work because the way that we were brought up, we saw sickness or anything like that as an annoyance, not something to stop and address."
mm,
So what happens is sometimes people end up ill, you know, with their body because they didn't express it. They held on to it so long that it turned it to something else, and now you have to go to the doctor's office. But perhaps if you would have had that safe place, that's another thing. That's not easy to find, a safe place. We all need a place. This is what I've learned in my 58 years of being here.
mm.
We all need that place that we can go to. We can express that and we're not judged,
Right.
you know.
Absolutely.
Um Sometimes I'm not speaking against church. I am pro church. The Lord has given me ministries. I'm still studying school for them and so on and so forth. So, church is our community. But uh, when you're talking about safe places,
Mm,
that's a show in and of itself. That's a podcast, if you will, in and of itself, because not everybody is that safe place. Not every spouse is a safe place. Not every So what do we find? We find safe places.
right.
Our safe places might not always be healthy, but it's a safe place,
Mm, wow.
right?
That's powerful. Yes.
Sometimes your safe place is food.
Hmm.
Sometimes your safe place is, we're being honest, right?
Right. It's better.
Sometimes your safe place is marijuana.
Hmm.
Sometimes your safe place is alcohol.
Hmm.
But life, we live in a broken world. So you're going to feel that in one way or the other. You need a safe place.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's why I've tried my best to be a safe place for my husband, for my children. But me myself, I need a safe place. So for me, because I have a relationship with the Lord, I, He's my safe place. But then I have some people I can uh speak with. Um, I have a sister-in-law who I actually call her my sister. I can speak to her. My safe places are very small.
Hmm.
I've always been like that coming up. I've never been around a large group of people. If anything, I've only had one, two, maybe the max three close friends
Hmm. Hmm.
because of hurt,
Right.
because so it taught me, I'm not opening up to a lot of people. So a lot of it took prayer, the prayer of the saints, because Shay, when I tell you, devastated, just devastated. And between their prayers, you come to points in this life where sometimes you cannot pray for yourself.
Mm,
So you need a team around you that they're praying for you, and sincere prayers.
yeah. Hmm.
And there's a scripture that says, "The prayers of the righteous availeth much," and that helped me. Um, and then I had to learn, what the older saints would say, or my parents would say: take it one day at a time.
Mm, yes.
We we say the words, but the concept itself, because you taught me how to be a beast.
Mm,
That's the way I hit it.
mm,
I hit the ground running. So you say that to me, but did you really model that for me? I always saw you being a beast until you were so sick that you were dying. So it was a quick transition. It was a quick transition because you weren't talking about it. So now when I need to speak about it, that's very difficult for me.
Right. Right.
And who is my safe place? Because if it's not going to be a person, it's going to be a thing.
Speak on it.
But is that thing healthy? But I just need a safe place in the beginning. So in the beginning, I don't care about that.
Right. Right.
Just give me that safe place. It's after a while, it's like, uh-oh. Now, some of the things in this life can hurt you so bad that you don't eat at all. But some of the things in this life can move you towards food. And I found a few things that I liked, and then my clothes weren't fitting anymore. So,
But that was your
so
safe
if you
space.
hold on
But that was your safe space. Mm,
for a time,
mm,
and when I had to go back to work, here, if it was in terms of my daughter, I had to go back to work in about 8 weeks. So that was 8 weeks to heal. 8 weeks, Shay, to heal from mental hurt, physical hurt, spiritual hurt, hurting of the heart, hurting of places that I didn't even know could hurt.
mm,
So you have 8 weeks to get that together and go sit at your desk. Really?
mm,
So I've always been a tea person. I moved to coffee because I needed that jolt
mm.
to get me out of the house so I could keep that job and I could, because the money has to keep coming in. Um, but as time went on and more hurts came, I'm sorry, Shay,
Stop
and
saying you're
more of my brothers
sorry.
and sisters left.
Mm,
I mean, we were a huge family. And I think there might only be three of us left. And sometimes, being honest, sometimes the family could get so small and the people who are left may not even get along. You
mm.
don't know these things.
Right. Right.
You have these expectations in your head that this is what it's going to look like, and it ends up not looking anything like that.
Wow.
And in life, sometimes things could look quite ugly.
Mm,
And the people who you think are going to be there for you, those are the very ones who turn on you.
mm. I've
So now where
experienced
do I
that.
go?
Yep. Yep.
Where do I go? You were supposed to be, where do I go?
Mm, mm.
So with that, I would say, yes, you go to the Lord. Sometimes you just also need someone physically to talk to.
Right.
So with that, I ended up having to pray about it and say, God, I need you to give me that person or those people who would be my safe place that I could. And when you do that, when your prayer is sincere, God works that thing out. He'll send that person, or perhaps it will be two people, and then all of a sudden you have a safe places, and they will speak into your life. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
how I got through it. In time, I was told
Mhm.
by the saints, you'll never get over it, but you'll learn how to live through it. And I can attest to that because as time moves forward and you learn to make healthier decisions. That's another thing with hurt. There are decisions, very important decisions that you have to make while you are hurting, that is going to uh, either change or help the direction of your life after that hurt. So I had to learn to make healthier choices. Healthier choices, you have to be disciplined for that. They're very difficult.
Mm.
They're very difficult. But once you make those healthier choices and you start to walk that path, you might lose some friends because they don't necessarily want to make the healthier choices with you.
Mm.
You have to be ready for that.
Mm. That's wisdom.
But I have found that if you lose certain friends, God will replace them with healthier friends because you chose a healthier path.
That's so true.
But you don't know this in the beginning.
Right. Or while you're going through it.
Right. You just know healthier choices takes courage,
Yes. And that is so true
but
because when I came to the realization that I needed help, uh, what made me delay getting that help for so long was that I was so worried about what other people would think, feel, say, know about me. And it really did take courage. It really took that feeling of I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I need to turn this thing around. And then, yeah. And then for me, particularly, I thought and I saw right in front of my eyes all that I was missing out on from not making healthier choices. So I looked at my family. I looked particularly at my beautiful little boys, and I said, I'm missing this. I'm here, but I'm not here. So how can I be present? How can I get healthy? How can I be better. And that certainly, you nailed it. It really took courage. And so, I just want to bring together some of the things that I've heard you say that have helped you pass difficult times, including grief and loss. Um, was this really one, making sure you had your horizontal relationship in place, your relationship with God, and then your vertical became uh, something that you could do and manage. Is once you had your spiritual right, you can have your relationship with people. And in those people, you were able to discern safe spaces, people who along the way, um, you prayed, you asked God to bring people in your life that, it's wonderful to be able to talk to God. And we have people who watch this show who are people of many faiths, or of people who are seeking people who have no faith. But I always encourage my audience that I can only speak to my personal story. And my personal story is one in which I got healthy when my vertical got in place. So when I connected with God, then I could start, the healing began. And then God brought people into my life, like you said, that helped me. For me, and I call them my board of directors, they were my mentors, my therapist, my sponsor. And I call them also scaffolding. And I said, wow, I'm supposed to be a strong woman. I didn't know I needed all of this, you know? And it took me a while to forgive myself for needing help. It took it took me a while, yes, to say there's nothing wrong with you because you hurt. There's nothing wrong with you because you need help. And instead of silently imploding and silently screaming and hoping that someone comes and tackles you to the ground and begs to be your friend and begs that you reveal what's going on in your inner heart because you can't bring yourself to do that, I had to dig deep and find that courage. And then to your point, and then to the point of that adage, of they say, at least in my 12-step program, they say, give time. And that one day at a time is so real. And over time, the hurt, to your point, the hurt um, will always be there, but you learn to live with it. And then, gradually, at least I've found, I've never lost a child, so I can't speak to that. But in losing a parent, I can say that there are days that I think back about my mother and think back about my father, and I can laugh and I can have a fond memory and I can smile and remember something that they said that brought me joy. And that has helped soothe when I'm in the places of remembrance and I start to feel that sadness begin to overtake me. And then the part that also that you mentioned, just having some grace for ourselves and some compassion for ourselves. And if you need to cry, just cry. You know, yeah. For the longest
But
time.
who tells us that?
y-
That's not just something that they tell men that they shouldn't do. Um, and I don't tell that to I can't say boys anymore, they're young men now. You need that space because men love too. And when men love, they love hard.
Mm,
So watching them, okay, so I've been married for 35 years. To God be the glory.
mm.
And I've learned a lot in those 35 years. So, for lack of better words, I would say men love differently because they're men, but they love. So,
And they love
you have to,
as deeply, but
honey,
differently.
please.
If not more.
Yes. And I
Mm,
find myself telling my potential daughters-in-law, you know, uh, what I've learned, but that's if they take the time to listen because, you could be so angry that you're not listening to the person. And I have to be mindful that they do have mothers. So I'm not trying to take their place, but if you would listen to the wisdom that the Lord allowed me to acquire during the years, you would do better in the future. But if you're not going to listen, then
mm,
um so with that, it's not just losses of life. Hurt is loss of relationships, loss of jobs, loss of any expectation that you had, you're hurting. I mean, hurt is
mm,
there's a myriad of reasons
mm.
why we hurt. We can't just, it's sometimes you hurt over something that you can't even understand. So sometimes you do have to get before the Lord and ask those hard questions. Why am I hurting? And then sometimes as you dig deeper with the help of the Lord, He may tell you you're hurting because of some kind of fear that you didn't realize you had. But then when you think about God's grace, when you think about His goodness, when you think about the fact that He wants our total well-being, why am I fearing?
Right. Well, and
He knew
true
this was
and
going to
true,
happen.
and certainly it's been my experience, and I talk about it in the book. It's getting to that place where you can find the God of your understanding, who you believe does love you and wants your well being. And a lot of times people are still on that journey because a lot of people carry church hurt or mosque hurt or temple hurt or you know um, because people are people, and so I encourage people, reconnect, like what we've talked about on the show before, what we talked about today, the so importance of reconnecting with a faith. Because if the world, if I was if I was God, if I was my own God, if I couldn't believe that there was something out there that was bigger, greater, wiser than me, then I would be in big trouble. If it buck stops here, then
Can we talk?
I would be in big
Can we
trouble.
talk?
But listen, we could go on like this for hours, and I really want to thank you, Irene, for your time today, for your wisdom, for your sharing, for your caring, and even for your crying. Because you know what, we need to role model what our parents couldn't because they were of a different generation, and so now, we know better, so let's do better. And sometimes doing better means I get to wear my heart on my sleeve and I get to show that I'm hurting so that another person, another sister could come along and lift me up and say, hey, I've been there too. And you will get through to the other side of this and encourage one another. And so I'm thankful for my faith. I'm thankful for my therapist. I'm thankful that I have a place that I can go for professional help, as well as so I found a safe space there, and I encourage my listeners all the time, find it. If you're not in counseling, I encourage you to find one. I also am thankful for my friends who have been a safe space for me, and you are one of them. And I thank you. I thank you for today.
Oh,
And
I'm
you,
so honored that
so
you would even say that.
yes. So, to my podcast audience, if you want to hear more episodes of the Better Not Perfect podcast or go back to season 1, you can find those episodes on YouTube. If you look for Better Not Perfect, you can find them on Apple Podcasts and across a myriad of platforms. But you can go to my website if you can't find them anywhere, and I will link you to them. And my website is www.drshaybutler.com. That's www.drshaibutler.com. Thank you and have a better day, better week, better life. And Irene, again, mwah, thank you.
Thank you. I am honored that you invited me.
Absolutely. Thank you.